Here we are back at it again. Another night, another video. So tonight, um, I lately I've been checking out really going back through a lot of psychological theories and things that I've studied in the past, and just recalling certain conversations I've had with people, and I've been thinking about their response to some of the things that I've said, right? And my guys get on to me all the time because they like, man, you say one thing like today gonna be relaxed, we gonna chill, or this gonna be kind of easy, and then you come out here and is all out, like full throttle, like it's not a rest day. We can't take it easy. And I got to thinking, like, man, I ain't gonna lie, I do that a lot. Like, so somebody might be expecting me to be a certain way because of certain things I say, but just because I believe in a certain thing or a certain way of being doesn't mean I'm gonna act like that all the time, right? Because check this out, and this is for a later time. Like everybody got a dark side, right? My true inner self is very dark. It's not evil, but it's very much a way that a lot of people wouldn't like. And I've had to explain this to a lot of people. But just because that's my belief and just because I think things should be that way doesn't mean I go out and portray that to the world or project that on to other people, right? So that led me to thinking like of the psychological term cognitive dissonance. And as I got to thinking about this more, like how I studied it, I was like, man, like I do have a cognitive dissonance because I have conflicting beliefs, values, and they differ from my actions. And not that necessarily it's a bad thing all the time, but it's just how I am. I may be super hard on myself and I may think certain things in my own personal life and I may have my own viewpoints of certain things. But like I say, that doesn't mean I go out and I treat people that way and I go out and act like that. So that's just kind of how I framed it in my head. So tonight I got a couple of notes that I want to present to y'all and a couple of things I want to add to the discussion. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Cognitive dissonance. Understanding cognitive dissonance can make a big difference in how you communicate, make decisions, and how you manage relationships at work, right? So let's break it down and like use a workplace lens throughout this discussion. So what is cognitive dissonance? Cognitive dissonance is a psychological term and it was coined by Leon Festinger in the 1950s, right? It describes the mental discomfort or tension we feel when we hold two or more conflicting beliefs, values, or attitudes, or when our actions don't align with our beliefs. So, for example, you see yourself as an honest person, but you tell a small lie in a meeting to make a project look better. That inner unease you feel afterwards, trying to rationalize that it wasn't a big deal, is cognitive dissonance. And we see this all the time, and we all have fallen victim to this term, right? If you haven't, hey, big ups to you. But I'm pretty sure all of us have had an encounter with this before, right? Now, I want to talk about how it affects us in our decision making, right? So, cognitive dissonance can influence one, decision rationalization. So, after making a difficult decision, we often try to justify it to reduce discomfort. Like, for instance, saying that was the only viable option, even if it wasn't ideal. Or, number two, it can influence resistance to feedback. If feedback conflicts with our self image, so saying like if you're a great communicator that you tell yourself, we may dismiss it rather than consider it. It can also influence number three, ethical blind spots. When workplace pressures push us to act against our values, we may downplay the conflict to protect our self-concept. You can see this in a lot of people who consider themselves hard workers but cut corners. And it also, last but not least, can influence team conflict. So dissonance can make people defensive or rigid. They double down on positions instead of reevaluating them. And unfortunately, I believe that that ties into toxic leadership, right? When you have that team conflict, and also you see a presence of dissonance where people are like kind of like I said, doubling down on a certain stance or something instead of just like rethinking it and re-strategizing and coming to a better conclusion, right? Also, to add more to the discussion, right? I want to ask, um, how do you recognize cognitive dissonance in yourself and others, right? So, signs in yourself could be feeling defensive when you're challenged, making excuses or rationalizations about certain things, avoiding certain topics or evidence. You can feel uneasy or a little off after you make a decision. Sometimes you may find yourself over explaining your actions to others. And I think once you get to a certain point, you kind of lose that. But sometimes when you're new to something, like just say you took on a new leadership position, you may find yourself doing this thing, and not necessarily that's a bad thing, but it seems like a lack of confidence, right? In what you're saying, it kind of seemed like the people in other generations say, like you're not standing on business, so that could be a problem. Now, signs in others, like especially at work, they become unusually argumentative or dismissive. They could also change the topic or deflect when faced with new information. We experience that a lot. They double down on a belief that's been proven wrong. It's a whole lot of that. And you just got to attribute that to ignorance, right? So, furthermore, they appear anxious or agitated during discussions about their decisions. That that may not happen as often unless you're in a leadership role and you're talking to subordinates, right? You're not usually going to speak to higher ups and discuss that, right? Unless you have somebody who's just super open, super open-minded, and extremely big on conflict resolution and finding solutions to certain issues and different issues, right? So now, how do we approach this and how do we overcome it at work? Number one, you have to pause and acknowledge it. Recognize that discomfort is normal. Okay, discomfort is normal. It's a sign that your mind is flagging a conflict worth exploring. So you kind of got to ask yourself, what belief of mine is being challenged right now? Why do I feel the need to justify this? And when you're making decisions, you're going to have to like ask these questions, especially if you're getting pushback, right? Not that you have to say it out loud, but kind of say these things to yourself and go back over that in your head. And you have to find a way to quickly implement that last one. Why do I feel the need to justify this? Not that the person or the people you're at justifying it to or less than, or they don't matter, that they're not important, not anything like that. But not every decision needs to be explained, right? You have all the information, and sometimes if you don't have all the information, you're in charge. So you have to stand on that, and you have to do that with confidence, right? Number two, seek objective feedback. Talk to trusted colleagues or mentors. Sometimes others can see our blind spots better than we can. And that's a big thing about having a team, about having the right people around you, and also just having people that know you, right? Know your leadership style, know your personality style, and they can help you with that. They can see all those blind spots, right? So number three, revisit your core values. You can ask like, what's most important here? Being right or doing what's right? And a lot of people say do right because it's the right thing to do. But let's be honest, with human beings, a lot of times people need incentives to do right. So that's just it, man. Anchoring decisions in values can reduce dissonance long term. That's beautiful. Now, number four, reframe mistakes as learning. Instead of defending the wrong choice, acknowledge it and learn from it. Okay. This turns dissonance into growth rather than guilt, which a lot of people may not voice this, but we can see it later on down the road, right? If you're very much if you have a high EQ. So number five, foster a culture of psychological safety. This is kind of difficult, but what I mean by this is if you're in the leadership role, create an environment where people can admit mistakes or change their minds without fear. That dramatically reduces group wide dissonance. This is huge. This is huge because a lot of people hate to be wrong, right? And they feel like if they're wrong, they're going to get called out. They're going to get looked at as dumb, or they don't know what they're doing. But you have to cultivate an environment where those things are not present, but are rare, right? Those feelings, because if someone makes a mistake, everybody has to understand like that's okay. We're all human, right? And a lot of people will, from what I've experienced, down talk leadership or down talk certain decisions that have been made because, of course, it's easier to coach from the stands, right? Everybody knows better after the fact. But in that time, everybody has their own input. Everybody wants to be in charge. Too many chiefs, not enough Indians. And that's what I mean by this, fostering a culture of psychological safety. Now, number six is practice cognitive flexibility, right? It's okay to hold uncertainty. Replace rigid, I have to be right thinking with I might be wrong, and that's how I learn. Now, that's where I be at because I'm very headstrong, right? And sometimes when I know I have a ton of experience, I have a ton of expertise in something, I can be narrow minded about that thing. So I have to open myself up to the fact that, hey, on this particular subject, on this particular fact, or what I think may be a fact, I have to consider the fact that I may be wrong, right? But I grow from it, right? And that's why I'm always asking for that feedback and fostering that culture of psychological safety. But you have to practice cognitive flexibility as well. Okay. So, not long, just a brief discussion I wanted to have today of some things I was thinking about, some conversations that I have with people, some feedback that I get. Like I say, when I come on here and I chop it up with y'all, that's all I'm doing. I'm presenting information, things that I've researched and looked up, and things that I've grown to know as I've gained more wisdom throughout the years. And I get to reflecting on certain things and thinking about it, and I have to come and ask y'all questions too because I want to know y'all. I want to know y'all thoughts as well. But again, like I said, a lot of us have dealt with this. A lot of us have encountered this. A lot of us deal with this day to day. This cognitive dissonance, and I'm going to go out and say there's no right or wrong way to handle every situation, right? But as we've talked about briefly in this discussion, is as a leader, sometimes you just gotta understand certain things, roll with the punches, and learn how to overcome it. But I feel like is kind of my job and my role as somebody who sees themselves as a leader and is a leader to present certain information out there, to put it out there, right? And I think that it may or it may not help people. That's up to y'all to whether you take it in or you may be past that level to where you already understand these things. But that's all on you. So, with that being said, I have nothing more for y'all. Y'all have a great night. I'm out.